Why Sunday night feels so empty. Script, have you ever noticed that strange, heavy feeling that creeps in on Sunday evening, right around the time the sun starts going down? Nothing bad has actually happened. You had a good weekend, and yet somehow, a quiet sense of dread settles in, a hollow, restless feeling that seems to come from nowhere at all. Almost everyone feels this at some point. Yet very few people ever stop to ask what it actually is. Is it just a modern side effect of hating your job? Or is there something much deeper happening inside your brain, something that has very little to do with Sunday itself? By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this feeling exists, why it's almost never about the day you're in, and what it reveals about how your mind handles the future. Let's start with what's actually happening in your body. Researchers call this phenomenon anticipatory anxiety, and here's the part that surprises most people. Your brain doesn't only respond to real present danger. It responds just as strongly, sometimes even more strongly, to an imagined future event. When you sit on your couch Sunday evening, your brain isn't reacting to the quiet room around you. It's already simulating Monday morning, the alarm, the commute, the inbox, the meeting you're dreading, and it's producing a real stress response for an event that hasn't even happened yet. One of the most fascinating things about this mechanism is how literal your brain is about it. Your nervous system doesn't have a reliable way to distinguish between imagining a stressful event and actually experiencing it. Neuroimaging studies show that vividly imagining a future stressor activates many of the same brain regions as living through it in real time. So when you picture Monday's overflowing inbox on a quiet Sunday night, some part of your brain genuinely believes it's already happening. So how do we know this theory holds up? Scientists studying cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, have found that levels reliably begin rising in the hours before a stressful event is expected, not during the event itself. In multiple studies, people anticipating a difficult task the next day showed elevated cortisol the evening before, even while sitting completely still, doing nothing stressful at all. The stress wasn't caused by anything happening in the room. It was caused entirely by a mental simulation of tomorrow. Here's where the story gets even more interesting, and this is where real science stumbled onto something almost by accident. In the 1990s, researchers studying anticipation weren't even looking at Sunday night specifically. They were studying dopamine, and they expected to find that this reward chemical spiked when people received something pleasurable. Instead, they found something stranger. Dopamine spiked before the reward, during the anticipation itself, and for unpleasant anticipated events, a very similar predictive mechanism produces dread instead of excitement. The brain, it turns out, is less a machine that reacts to the present and more a machine constantly predicting the immediate future. For better or worse, neuroscientists point to a specific mental habit that makes Sunday evenings especially vulnerable to this effect: unstructured time. During a busy work week, your brain is occupied, constantly focused on tasks, meetings, and immediate demands. But Sunday evening is often quiet, slow, and empty of obligation. And it's precisely in that empty space that your mind, no longer distracted, turns its attention toward whatever it was suppressing all weekend. The silence doesn't create the anxiety, it simply removes the noise that was covering it up. This experience varies quite a bit from person to person. Some people feel a mild unease, others describe a genuine wave of sadness or panic that arrives like clockwork every single Sunday. Job satisfaction, sleep quality, and general anxiety levels all influence how intense this reaction becomes. And here's a question worth asking. If this feeling is really about Monday, why does it show up on Sunday night specifically and not, say, Monday morning itself? Because by the time Monday actually arrives, you're back in motion. The anticipation phase is over, and your brain shifts from imagining the stressor to actively coping with it, which is often less distressing than the dread of imagining it in the abstract. Today, this pattern is more common than most people realize. Some surveys suggest a majority of working adults report feeling this dip in mood specifically on Sunday evenings, a pattern so consistent it's earned an informal name in popular psychology: the Sunday Scaries. And yet very few employers, schools, or even therapists treat it as a real physiological event rather than a mood or a complaint. So how can you actually reduce it? It comes down to giving your brain less unstructured time to spiral and more concrete information to work with. Planning something specific and enjoyable for Sunday evening, going for a walk, cooking a proper meal, calling a friend, gives your mind an immediate task instead of empty time to fill with imagined dread. Writing down Monday's actual to-do list rather than letting it float vaguely in your head also helps because vague anticipated stress is almost always worse than specific concrete stress. A blurry, undefined Monday feels far more threatening to your brain than a Monday broken down into 5 clear, manageable steps. Now imagine for a moment that every single Sunday of your adult life has followed this exact pattern. Quiet dread rising in the evening, a full night of restless anticipation. Then relief the moment Monday's actual tasks begin. That's potentially thousands of Sunday evenings spent bracing for something that, once it arrives, is almost never as bad as it felt the night before. But let's dig even deeper. Because anticipatory anxiety isn't the only force shaping this particular evening. There's a social layer to this too, one that connects to something much older than office jobs and calendars. Some researchers propose that part of this Sunday dread taps into a much older evolutionary discomfort, the transition from unstructured, socially loose time back into a structured group hierarchy. For most of human history, weekly rhythms didn't exist. But the shift between loosely structured personal time and tightly structured group obligation likely did. And the psychological weight of re-entering a demanding social structure, one where you'll be observed, judged, and evaluated, may be baked into something older than the modern work week itself. On a more technical level, scientists link the Sunday evening mood dip to a combination of circadian rhythm disruption and reward contrast. Weekends often involve later wake times, more relaxed schedules, and more immediate, pleasurable activities, so Sunday evening represents a sharp drop in both novelty and dopamine compared to the 2 days before it. Your brain, having just experienced a stretch of higher reward and lower structure, registers the upcoming return to routine as a steep decline, even if your actual job or school life is perfectly fine on an objective level. It isn't that Monday is bad, it's that Sunday evening is the exact moment your brain notices the gap between what you just had and what's coming next. Here's a striking statistic. Studies on workplace mood tracking have found that self-reported happiness drops sharply late on Sunday afternoon and evening, then partially recovers by Tuesday, forming a consistent dip that researchers sometimes call the weekly happiness curve. Interestingly, the lowest point of the entire week for most people isn't Monday itself. It's the evening before it even begins. Going back to the deeper mechanism at play, imagine your brain as a forecaster constantly running simulations of the days ahead, using whatever information it has to predict what's coming and prepare you for it. When information is vague, the forecast defaults to worst-case scenarios because from a survival standpoint, overestimating a future threat has always been safer than underestimating one. What's especially interesting is that this isn't a flaw in your brain, it's a deliberate design choice, favoring caution over comfort whenever the future is uncertain. Some researchers even believe this same predictive machinery, running simulations of future events and generating emotional responses to them before they happen, is one of the most defining features that separates human cognition from that of most other animals. Beyond humans, similar anticipatory stress responses have been observed in some other social mammals, particularly in structured group hierarchies, suggesting this discomfort around re-entering a demanding social structure may be a deeply rooted feature of group living species in general, not something invented by modern work culture. It's a striking example of how a mechanism built for survival can persist long after the original threat. A predator, a rival, a dominant group member has been replaced by something as mundane as an inbox. If you want to test this for yourself, try paying close attention to what your mind is actually doing the next time Sunday evening dread shows up. Notice whether you're truly upset about the present moment or whether your thoughts have quietly drifted into a vivid, detailed simulation of tomorrow. Just don't try to aggressively suppress the feeling the moment you notice it. Forcing yourself not to think about tomorrow at all often backfires and makes the anticipation even louder. A better approach is simply naming it. This is anticipation, not the actual event, which alone tends to soften its intensity. Here's a fascinating historical detail, and it circles back to that idea of familiar structure versus unstructured time. Before the modern 5-day workweek became standardized in the 20th century, many histos